senior market analyst in Equiti, and we've been. Did you have any sleep yesterday?
A little.
But
a little.
now we actually have somehow we can say it's moving towards a clearer view. Donald Trump is
Taking
leading
lead,
at the moment. Georgia also announced that he won in Georgia as well. So far, we have Donald Trump with 247 votes and Harris 214. So there's 68 left. But then you can also, I don't know if you can tell us more about each state that we're waiting for their
Let's break them
results.
down. So we have North Carolina with Donald Trump taking lead, Pennsylvania as well. And it's a very close race. It's like usually 51% to Donald Trump and then 47% to Kamala Harris. Wisconsin as well to Trump, and then we have Michigan to Trump as well, and Nebraska to Harris, Nevada to Trump. These are the 7 key states that we were placing our bets on. And Arizona as well to Harris. Georgia flipped to Trump in the last moment.
And actually the results are out.
Oh.
Yes. Just minutes ago, and he won in Georgia. So that's another 16 votes.
Yeah.
Gets us closer to the end of maybe this rally. So if we want to speak numbers, we had 23 votes left. If we have now 16 extra, so we only need 7 to announce Donald Trump as the winner of the U.S. elections. The markets are already pricing that in. Mm-hmm. We can see indices jumping. I can
gold
see
down.
Gold down a little bit.
A little bit. Gold is actually hovering around 2,703 right now.
Let me open the chart
so
for
show
gold.
Them.
Oh, I left gold around 2,723.
Yeah, it fell in the last literally 2 minutes.
Testing 2,700. If you can check, this is a very strong support, psychological support. If I want to see the RSI, it's showing me almost an overbought situation, whether it's on the 5-minute charts, 1-minute chart, 15-minute chart. So a possible rebound is not really ruled out. Maybe we can see it going back to retesting 2,715 just because of the overbought situation that we've seen. But
show them their 15-minute time frame.
The 15-minute. We are on the 15-minute time frame. We are also very close. If you can see, actually, it's not 2,700. It's 2,701. That's the support. It's bounced back from that. Definitely, we would see that because it's a very strong support. So we really need to see it breaking below that. And if it continues below 2,700, Nadia, where do you think it might...
So we spoke about this with our guests yesterday, Raed and Ali, and we agreed that 2,650 seems like a good psychological support level that we've retested a couple of times before we hit the 2,700. So I think this area is very close to target, I guess.
True, and we see a lot of liquidity also parked around 2,650. Just for those who prefer betting on a short term, levels of 2,685 is a very close support. Then we have also another close support around 2,675, and then the famous 2,655 might be a very major support for prices in case we continued this downtrend. Now, if we see a rebound, if for some reason we have some maybe a mixed data, we highly doubt at the moment, but everything is possible, then maybe if we rebound back to 2,715, the next resistance would be around 2,729. We're discussing a range, so around.
And this is possible if, let's say, investors are pricing in whether Trump's agenda will kind of lift gold prices till the end of the year or not. So this could be a reason for a rebound. So again, we could test levels of 2,725 once we break this level, which we right now tumbled from. Then it could give us some possibility to test the upper levels back again.
True. So now back to NASDAQ. Tech stocks, they were leading yesterday. They were the most cheering for Donald Trump, when even though if you realize, or what we discussed yesterday, the major Magnificent six of the Magnificent Seven, Tesla's out of that, but they were very generous with Harris and her rally. So it's really weird to see this reaction, the market's reaction to a possible Trump win. We've seen the prices rebounding from a very strong psychological level, which was 20,000. That was a resistance. That was the goal of NASDAQ throughout summertime. But then when we broke above it, now it turned to a resistance. We retested it. That's the 15 minutes chart. Rebounding from that yesterday, we were testing 20,170, and we were discussing whether if it breaks above it, where it would go. Then we had the 350, and it actually reached this target. I will zoom in a little bit, Nadia. You can see that we actually went up, broke above it, retested it. Very clearly that the markets are respecting the technical levels that we were mentioning and talking about yesterday, and now we rebounded from that and continuing the bullish momentum. Now, for those who are still betting on a bullish momentum, where's the next resistance? It's around 20,600. Keep an eye on this level. What do you think?
We can break this to 20,644? This is the highest peak that we've reached over the past few weeks, and I think it's very possible. I mean, if we look at the 4-hour chart, we can see how the candles are moving in a swift momentum after let's say a flag that kind of happened on a technical scale. So I think 20,644, we could break it easy.
Will Donald Trump support NASDAQ to break its all-time high around 20,770? It seems that it's not really a very impossible scenario.
Yeah, it's very close.
And I mean, since the stock, the major wins that we've seen since yesterday till today was in tech stocks, so it's a high probability, I would say.
Plus, we talked about yesterday how the Magnificent Seven is outperforming the S&P 500, outperforming the NASDAQ itself, even though these major indices, they had a bull run up to at least 40% this year so far. So I think very possible that we could break new levels today. And markets have already gained a lot of momentum in a positive way. Futures yesterday opened up in the green, and today they're continuing the same momentum. So I think even the Dow Jones has potential to break its 43 and 66 level, which is the next target that we have.
You know, we were discussing yesterday Goldman Sachs and their probable scenarios if Trump wins and the reflection it would have on S&P. The best case scenario for S&P was actually for Trump to win. And now we are seeing S&P retesting the all-time high, I would say the area of all-time high. We're very close to a psychological resistance, which is 6,000. I think with this huge momentum, if it continues, and since we are very close to the psychological level that everyone asks, what would happen to S&P if we reach to 6,000?
Yeah.
I think the markets wants an answer for that. So retesting or testing for the first time the 6,000, I think it's not really an impossible scenario.
Yes. This was the end of year target for all the major banks at the beginning of the year. Well, like since half of the year when we started to see record highs past the 5,000 level, then everyone upgraded their resistance, or let's say the target for the end of the year, which was above 6,000, and now we're very close to hitting this target. So I think maybe they will extend the target for the first quarter of 2025 if the bull run continues.
Yes, now that's the main question. Is the bull run going to continue? Is it a first reaction to the news, or will we see this momentum growing? My question is, are we going to see a sideways movement between the all-time high and very major support, or is it the news needed to break above the all-time high and continue the bullish momentum? What do you think?
I think it will be based on economic data. I think if GDP numbers came in lower than 1.6 that we've seen in the last quarter, then there will be a little bit of panic in the markets.
I mean, we all forgot about a major news happening tomorrow, which is the Fed decision. And I feel like the markets were really muting that. I think in case we had the results early, we were worried that maybe the real results would take a couple of days to come out. In case we have clear results, Trump is the winner, then the major focus would switch to the Federal Reserve.
With a
What's your
25 rate cut expected for the month of November. I think this will add to the momentum of stocks. I think we will see a continuation of the bull run cycle. I don't know how far though this will extend, but I think if Trump does win, then overall there's general optimism about this for stocks, and I think there is no reason for it not to continue unless we have bad earnings, bad GDP numbers, bad economic indicators that reflect a non-resilient U.S. economy. But so far, the numbers are really good for the U.S. economy, and that's what's supporting the rally, right?
100%.
Yeah.
We just had really bad news coming last week from the job market. Still not clear. Is it an anomaly? Is it a new trend? Because we had the hurricane, we had really major news that affected these numbers. I want to jump back to gold. We were discussing gold a while ago. On the 15-minute time frame, it's actually retesting the 2,715 as we were discussing and expecting, just because of an oversold situation that needed a bit of a rebound. Now we can see that 2,715 is actually working as a great resistance. Prices went back down. Let's keep an eye on that. It's not only the indices that went up, not only tech stock, there's also the dollar, which is usually not the way we see things.
Yeah.
It's either indices are gaining momentum or it's the US dollar, but Trump is supporting indices, it's supporting the US dollar. The major news I've seen or major reaction was on USD JPY. I love that. I kept an eye on that last couple of days. So if we will jump on the USD JPY, we need to remember both of them are somehow considered safe havens. Now, Japanese yen lost somehow the status over the last couple of years as well because of their unorthodox policy.
Yeah.
And I think it was a continuous policy. We wouldn't definitely see major changes from Bank of Japan. We had this a bit of rebound on USD JPY. We had this small downtrend. Breaking above it would give us a sign, and it did break above it yesterday, that maybe a major momentum will continue. We are now, yesterday we were around 151. That was the support that the prices rebounded from. We are up over $4.
Yeah.
Or 4 points, sorry, on the pair. We are around 154.2. 155 was always also a psychological level for this pair. It was the times where we heard Bank of Japan discussing possibilities of intervening, never really did. But let's see how the prices will react around 155. I think that's also a major resistance for the prices.
I think
Any different pair you were...
The problem with the Japanese yen right now, I think it's ultimately the policy that they have, because they want to hike rates, but inflation is very low. So they're really kind of like stuck in a very bad situation. But the yen it's tumbling down and it's going out of control, and that's why they need to intervene. And the only way they can do that is by hiking interest rates, while CPI is really low in Japan.
I think now they're just betting on a lower interest rate from the US. So they're just saying as long as the US would bring more rate cuts to the table, we wouldn't need to do that, or we don't need to change our policy. And the 50 basis points created major, the markets really were shaking back then because of the carry trade possibly coming to an end, the Japanese yen going super strong. Let's go to the daily chart.
So now things are changing, going from, we had the end of the carry trade, and we had now the start of the Trump trade. So
I don't think actually it's the end of carry trade. That's something that we need to also mention. Whatever happens, still the US dollar is way stronger than the Japanese yen. The fundamentals will support the US dollar. Couple of rate cuts from here, even a bit of a raise cut from the US, from the Japanese central bank, it wouldn't change this scenario.
But the diversion will be very little.
Yeah.
Now that they're cutting rates in the US and they're going to hike rates in the Bank of Japan, the diversion, the reason why the carry trades are happening is going to be less and less. So I think although the carry trades have quite faded, obviously there's a lot of investors making use of that. But I think the more we cut interest rates in the US, the more that we're going to have less of a divergence between the two banks.
Do you think next year would bring more than full 1 point?
What do you mean?
In the US, we might see like 0.75. We might see a full point rate cut. But would we go beyond that? Would we go for what? 4 point rate cuts?
This will highly depend on the numbers. If the labor market continues to go down, and I don't think this is the case. I think the figure that we've seen in October was because of the hurricanes and the labor strikes. But other than that, I think that the job market, there's a lot of job creation in the US still. There's still a resilience. So I highly doubt that. If the labor market does weaken though, then everything is going to change from record highs to a sell-off point.
Yes. I doubt it might happen. I doubt that the fundamentals in the US would be weaker than different parts of the globe. So that's why I think the carry trade will remain. Whatever happens, I think it's still a strong dollar in the markets, just because if we want to compare it to different currencies, not comparing it to different assets. And that's why also there's something that we really need to highlight. If we're discussing these all-time high on S&P 500, NASDAQ, gold, Bitcoin, everything, we can just translate it to a very simpler way, that we have a weaker US dollar. So whatever we're pricing with the fiat currency, it's losing its value. Because if you want, for example, to measure the S&P 500 with gold, it's really in a stagnation mode. If we want to measure it with Bitcoin, it's doing bad.
Yeah.
So we're just saying that S&P 500 reaching all-time high simply because dollar is losing its value. But then when we're discussing the dollar as fiat currency with different, in comparison with different currencies, then the dollar is shining and it's showing some strength. So I believe, yes, the dollar is strong compared to other fiat currency. No, the dollar is not strong compared to commodities, compared to indices and all of that.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think what they're asking me about gold again.
Let's go back to gold. So we're seeing it back below 2000.
It's trying to retest. I think there's a lot of uncertainty because the results are coming in maybe after 15, 20 minutes.
Yes.
So I think Trump's also expected to address supporters soon. I think that right now, the retest that we could see for gold would likely be the uncertainty more than the Trump winning. But as soon as Trump wins, will we see a break below the 2,700?
Seems very possible. From technical perspective, it seems very possible.
Yeah.
So now we'll go to Bitcoin. Since we're discussing different forms of currencies, Bitcoin broke above its all-time high. It's traded around 74,400 or 500 right now. So let's go to the daily chart. This is the chart that we were discussing yesterday. If you were tuning in, we had a sideways movement. In this sideways movement, we had a bit of a drop, a local downtrend. Breaking above this local downtrend was our sign that we are probably going to see a rebound. We retested this upper level of this downtrend, continued trading above it, broke levels, very strong support, resistance levels, the 70, first 68, 70. Now the region of all-time high around 73, and we are trading above it. 73, 700 is turning to support. This is what Trump can do to the markets.
I think there's a very big chance that we're going to break the 75. We could go all the way to 85. Do you think that we can go 100, maybe 100 by end of week if Trump does win?
Now,
I think there's a lot of risk appetite in the markets despite the fear and the uncertainty. I feel like major indices are going up, stocks are going up, and gold not so much. So I think that there is a risk appetite in the market that could drive Bitcoin prices higher.
True, and I mean, maybe it's a FOMO effect. Nobody wants to miss out on that. Maybe it's a short-term thing, but it's definitely interesting to keep an eye on it. The VIX index continuing its uptrend, and maybe I would like to have a look on the Chinese markets before opening the chart, because we were discussing a lot the relationship that Trump would have with China. I think it's one of his major. I don't know, like major
Enemies?
goals. If you want to call it that way, he's like, if you would leave the dollar, if you would try to step away from the dollar as a BRICS, I will raise tariffs by 100%. I would raise tariffs overall by 10%, but China 60%, because you're China. So how do you think the indices in China would be reacting to Trump's win, in case it happens? But I mean,
I feel like the overall trend has been that Asian markets are highly tracking Wall Street markets, and as long as there's gains coming in on Wall Street, I think that the effect on Chinese stocks will be kind of limited. I feel like when they announced the increasing tariffs on Chinese companies, I think that we've seen a little bit of a downtrend. However, the more and more Wall Street did break record highs, the more and more we've seen Chinese stocks being able to recover more.
That's true before Trump. But now today it seems that it's taken a hit. It's trading around, and that's interesting. That's a very interesting chart. We're seeing it around 30,500. I think that's
this is which
the
chart?
Chinese 50, the major mainland index. That's the uptrend, that's the spike that we've seen post end of September, when we had this major liquidity injected in the market. For the first time, we're seeing actually very not shy moves from China. It was a big move, and I believe that it's the right time for China to start helping the markets. Before that, it was just very shy moves, just because they had very weak Q1. They couldn't really add more pressure to it with more liquidity, more easing, and the US moving towards, more higher interest rate. Now that the US and internationally central banks over 70% all over the globe moving to lowering their interest rates, China is a bit more free to introduce some easing. It did that. We had this spike on the index. Now we rebounded. We had very minimal movement. I think it's healthier to see this minimal movement. But today, China doesn't like the news. It's not a major drop, but at least we're seeing it rebounding back to a very strong support. 13,500. Is it a good time to buy if you're looking into a way in for China? Maybe. But then if it breaks below that, then we have another major support around 30,000. It might be also a good entry point if you're looking for a rebound to enter China. So that's the major reaction we're seeing today. Markets are happy. Bitcoin is happy. Gold not so much, but even with everything happening, Bitcoin is gold still trading above 2,700. It's not really bad for gold. And
we will be seeing key market movements in a few, I guess, 20 minutes or so, then we will be able to. But the start of the Trump trades, they've already kicked off as Trump leads the way. The dollar is more than 4-month highs, hovering near that level. The peso hits a 2-month low. So we're seeing the things that we kind of bet on yesterday in the live starting to take place and starting to happen. So we will know more after the results. Thank you guys for tuning in. And let's see what happens.